Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Saturday Sampler. We're here working on the Desert Windmills block. Good morning, Lynette. Good to see you this morning. And hi, Dot, Bonnie. It just went right out of my head. I looked at who was coming on. Hi, Alice. So we're getting started on this. I would like to know, though, this morning if you had any issues or trouble or anything going on with the blocks that I could answer any questions for you. I'll be honest, I didn't get all of my blocks done this week, so I still have a few more to go. But we're gonna tackle these little blocks in the sashing, and so that you're ready for that whenever you get the blocks done. And so that will be, and then we're gonna put it together, because there's a couple of different options for you for the outer border if you choose to put one on. So anyway, we'll go through all of that next week, and then we'll be done with Desert Windmills. It's gone by really quickly. I'm surprised at how fast the days are going, and that we are already looking at September. And so this week it was busy time for me with a number of things. Continuing to prep for Michigan retreat coming up the 1st of October, which is going to be here before I know it, and teaching some ice dyeing classes, which was a lot of fun. I think the ladies had a great time learning how that whole process works and what kind of beautiful fabrics that you can get out of that. So anyway, good morning, everyone. It's good to see you here, and we'll get started with this. I want to pop down and share with you last week's finished block. So that I did finish, and I'm going to try to get it a little sharper with the camera. I think that's it for today. So anyway, finish that. I just love these fabrics and how well everything is looking on that. So I want to go to the paper, and at the bottom of the one where the block is, so that you know how to put it together, is the assembly for the wing. They're calling them wing units. So we're gonna look at that today, and I'm doing a little bit more traditional flying geese, because I wanted all of these to be out of different fabrics. So let's jump right into that. And if you needed to know where the sashing is, there is a number of different lengths and widths and stuff, and we'll get to that and talk about all of that absolutely as we put this together. I don't know why I'm having that, seems very blurry today. And so let's get that unit done, and then we'll talk about putting all of those together with that. Let me just move these papers out of my way. And I have made one of those units, and I want to make one with you. So this is what the unit looks like, using different fabrics. And so you're going to need, for that block, two 3.5 by 2 inch rectangles again, so it's the same sizes that you were cutting before, and then you're going to need 2-inch squares, so that we can put them on the end of that. So let's just jump right in and get this accomplished. So the first thing that we need to do is, if you are not using the tape or the Sew Steady mat, whatever, you'll need to mark a line through the center of your squares, so that that you're getting it correctly. If you're using the Sew Steady table, or mat on your piece, you don't need to mark it. We're going to get our fabric on there correctly. And again, use the glue, use a pin, whichever works best for you if the fabric is moving on you. But because I'm only working with 2 inches, I'm going to go with just taking it. I like to sew from the center to the corner, simply because then I'm not pushing that point into the hole where the needle goes in at the top. So I'm, just following, and I'm gonna kind of chain stitch this a little bit. So getting that right on there, and again I want to stitch from corner to corner. And if you are, new to flying geese and haven't made them, before, other than what I showed you last week, you are going to need to press this first piece prior to sewing the next one on. And I don't know that you absolutely have to cut this away. You could probably just leave it there, because once the quilt is quilted, you kind of don't know it's there. But to get rid of bulk that's unnecessary, I'll cut that away on that side, and then I'm simply going to press it back. And because you're working with bias, again, try not to iron, that back and forth motion, but just press it back. And we need to press it first, because if we don't, we won't get that 1/4 inch at the top up here, because that overlaps. And so just so that you remember and know that. All right, so back to I'm going to cut that 1/4 inch away, and I am pressing that, and I didn't change the camera, I'm sorry. Sometimes my head, I get wound up in what I'm doing and I forget. So again, from center point to the outside edge of that. And again, I'm going to trim away that edge. Press it. And I'll just refer back to the picture to know that on the left hand, I'm going to make 3 that are pointing to the left, and I'm going to make 3 that's pointing to the right. So this one, this top one is pointing left. So this time I'm going to turn it so that we're going in the opposite direction with this. So if I wanted to keep this one on the left hand side, I'm going to sew this to the top. So maybe you can see the differences here. So the pattern tells you to mirror image it. So this one on the left hand side, on this side, is at the top with the square on the bottom. So this one that I'm making is going to be the flying geese on the bottom, and this square on the top. But the first thing that I want to do is I want to go back and measure this to make sure, because I sewed badly. So I'll just make up that piece as I go through it next time. So I've got this on here. I'll make that seam allowance, you know, that discretion that I had in my seam allowance the next time through. So I've got this put on there correctly. And I'm going to do the same thing over here with this one. So again, I'm going to trim that down. I'm going to press it. And now as I look at the mirror image, so this one would be on the right side with the square at the bottom. So I'm, you know, going to sew it up that way. Get that correct in there. All right, so I have my 2 units together, and so set those seams, press that out. All right, so mirror imaging this, so I've made, let's pretend I've made all 3 of those going that direction. So this time I want it to be mirror imaged, and so it's going to look like this. And I will make 3 of those, and for in the sashing. So putting these, lining those up, and there's no seams to match on this one. So it's a quick, you know, sew together. But with all of your blocks from before, you could certainly have done all your flying geese this way. And I believe that this is the way that I just did them was the way that she had suggested, one of the ways that she had suggested in her pattern. And the other way was cutting all the triangles and sewing it that way. So. All right, so let's press that open. And at this point, it doesn't really, I don't think it matters which direction that you go in terms of all right, so now we have our 2 mirror imaged blocks. All right, and so that is going to be part of the sashing. So let's go back to our sashing page for just a minute. So you're making all of those blocks, and let's just go into the sashing, and you're going to notice that it's asking you to make 9 3.5 by 12.5, 4 3.5 by 11 3/4, 4 3.5 by 11. And 2 by 3.5 in the colors for the wings, and so that's what I had used there. You're going to have 12 2-inch squares and 12 2 by 3.5 inch background fabrics, and it says for the wings, but I did not. I used the 2-inch squares for that, so that was for me. That was a miswrite in terms of that. But let's look at the pattern where the sashing goes. The reason that your sashing is different for each one is because of how it is assembled here. So let's take a look at the A's. Those were cut 3.5 by 12.5, and that's because your blocks end up 12.5-inch squares, unfinished. So you would sew these in vertical rows between, and then these sashing pieces are going to be sewn separately, and you'll piece these 3 rows together as one long unit vertically, as opposed to if you generally do it horizontally. So your bees were 3.5 by 11 3/4, and that's because this extends a little bit over on the blocks. And so your bees at the top and the bottom are 11 3/4, and your C's are these 2 center ones, and those were the 3.5 by 11 inch. And it's just simply because it overlaps in there, and so it's taking up some space in that. So if you could, and then they go through this inner border. We'll talk about that next week, and what we're going to do with the outer border, because you have a couple of options in the pattern itself with this diagonal border. This one is a pieced border, and we'll talk about some other possibilities for pieced borders. That doesn't have the half square triangles if you wanted to do something different there or whatever. But that is the assembly of the sashing with that. Let me just take a look. Barbara, I'm so sorry that you had a house fire and you're having to, accumulating more materials and stuff. So, I am not seeing any questions right now. Yeah, reality is that we don't always get everything done that we want to get done at once. These little units don't take a ton of time, but that gives you opportunity to catch up with the blocks if you didn't finish them. And I know some of you are still gathering fabrics and are working on other projects before you start this one, and that's the way quilting goes, and it makes it kind of fun. But the fabrics in our kit were just beautiful, and so I'm having a lot of fun putting those fabrics together, and I want to see how the quilt comes. So I've kind of put some other projects aside, and I'm working on this, and hope to have completely completed by the end of the time. So that's my goal. We'll see if I make it, because we don't always get to where we want to go in a timely fashion. But those units are pretty easy to make, and if you have any questions at all about assembling, these, the blocks, or these flying geese units that are they're referring to them as wings in the pattern, please put it on the forum, send me an email, whatever, and we'll try to get those questions answered. Any tips on pressing when putting rows together in blocks? Marion, that is a great question. And the truth of it is that I have found it's easiest for me, and I like the way it flows if I press towards the sashing on both sides. The sashing kind of raises a little bit because you're pressing towards the inside on both. But once it's quilting, depending on what you as the quilter, or if you take it out to have it quilted, puts into those sashings, it really adds quite a bit to that. I don't know, maybe someone else has another tip to give you, but for me, pressing toward the sashing all the way around seems to work best. And if you have those intersections that are a little thicker, like the center of this, then I'm gonna really take you back. I have totally kind of fallen in love with this Acorn precision piecing product, and it's called Easy Press Solution. And I know we have small kits or sell this in the quilt store, and that really flattens everything out completely. And because I am still of the old adage, and probably because I've made pillows and pillow covers where I've washed them a number of times, that the reason that as quilters we press to the left or to the right instead of open is so that the batting and stuff doesn't come through between the stitches. And even if we sewed it even tighter, it still comes through a little bit. And I've had that experience, especially with pillows or something that I've washed a lot. And so I'm still of the mind that to press it to the left or to the right, depending, and butting those seams up together. But that's a personal preference, and many people are right now pressing their seams open, and that helps get rid of bulk. And that was a very long answer to a very short question. So, do you quilt your own quilts? Sue, I wish I could say yes. I do small ones. I do them if I really need to get something done. I really, honestly, am not good at it. And I think it's a mental block, because I certainly could get better if I would practice more. But I have a tendency to send mine out. And that's why I have so many quilt tops unquilted in my closet. And so, anyway, I wish I could say I did, but I don't very often. So, anything else? Okay, then next week we will be together again, and we're going to work on putting that sashing and getting these borders figured out for that. And so watch, go back and re-watch if you need to, the quilt assembly or this if you haven't started yet. And I'm anxious to get some great pictures next week. And so have a wonderful week. Enjoy your sewing time. Blessings to you all.